Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Vengeful and Tardy Comic Vault. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great.
Today, Dan and I are finally getting back to, and this proves that nothing is too late or has been, or we've left on the table for too long to come back to. Today we're doing another 90s, potentially not so great to crappy, Venom miniseries, and we're doing the very next one after Lethal Protector, or at least the research I did said this was the next one. I think I'm right about it. Yeah. This is Venom Funeral Pyre, and don't be confused by the title. Pyre is actually a character. Not kidding, and we'll get into that. This is written by Tom Lyle with art by... Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, art by Tom Lyle, written by Carl Potts. And these were both people I wasn't immediately familiar with, or names I didn't know right off. But Eric and I looked up Tom Lyle because he recognized that name, and he did the Robin minis around the same time. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's like Joker's Wild and those things. I immediately remembered what that art looked like. I was like, oh yes, that does look quite a bit like this.
Yeah, I didn't think the art was too bad in this. I mean, I wasn't over the moon impressed with it either, but it was solid, for sure.
Yeah, and for 90s Marvel, which tends to be pretty phoned in, it was...
Yes, yes.
It was okay. I think the Venom stuff is the strongest, and I guess going right away into a positive, because most of what I have to say about this is not especially positive, but I like what Venom looks like in this. I like a lot of the panels with him. I think I think some of that is really dynamic and a lot of fun to look at, and the very reason a person would want to pick this up. So he's delivering the goods for people that really like that character and would buy this, as many people would, I think, for the look over anything else.
Yeah, I think this is a good happy medium between like the way McFarlane draws Venom with like just kind of the smile, and the late 90s Venom where he's like got a mouth that's like 2 feet long and it's like all slobbery with green slime. We're not quite there yet, so I like that we kind of got an in-between with the way he's drawn here. It looks pretty cool. Yeah,
I think sure. One of my favorite panels is in the middle to toward the end. Actually, no, it's the second to last page of the first issue, where he says, "and soon to be very dead," and he's leaping in front of a building. That's that classic Venom that does have the tongue with the green slime, but it's not wrapping around his head 3 times, and
yeah, exactly.
it's not obnoxious. But yeah, he does do the slime thing. But I really like that. About half the time, it's a Venom that is allowed to close his mouth or have his tongue inside it, and so you know, I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't mind the green slime as long as it's not like gratuitous. You know, I've seen it get gratuitous.
Yeah, and I like the happy Venom that is like really excited to be there and has like the big giant smiley face. We don't always draw him like that anymore, even when it is like the more classic Eddie Brock Venom or like a bad guy Venom. I don't know. He should be like a Velociraptor. He just always looks like he's smiling.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So let's go ahead and get into this. This is a 3-part miniseries, really quick read, 15-20 minutes for the whole thing, it's and it's well, merciful though, right? You know, you didn't love this. It's nice it didn't take you long to read it.
I felt like this could have been like half an issue or an issue at the most, padded out for 3 issues. It's very quick. It's really padded, and
what hurts that, of course, is that it's not really Venom's story. I mean, it's not to say that he doesn't have decisions he has to make, and we'll talk about it because it's really awkward. I mean, by the end, he's kind of stuck in a place where it's not, everything that happens is not exactly his fault, but this Pyre guy is talking about it like it is to really ramp up the drama, and it's all really Punisher's fault. This is a team up. Well,
it's this guy's fault. The decisions he makes are terrible.
Yeah, you know, that's true, and I couldn't decide how much of that was on purpose. But like, okay, so like Venom not doing the thing that he needed help with when he did is kind of Punisher's fault, but you're right, like, he gets himself in this whole situation in the first place, and he just keeps making mistakes, and we're talking about this Pyre guy, and we'll talk about what happens to him and who he is, but I think he's supposed to be sort of like a little bit of a mirror for Venom, where Venom has this kind of attitude of, like, I do bad things when I have to because I have no choice, but often that's an excuse to be a vengeful character, and then we compare that with the Punisher and kind of ask, is the Punisher sort of doing the same thing? And I do like the idea of comparing those two characters, because they're both lethal protectors in a way, or think they are, where they do run around and murder people who they think deserve it, and they think the world is a better place for it, but arguably Punisher might be more sane than Venom is, where he's not necessarily like getting his jollies from it the way that Venom is. And I thought we could have done in this a lot more with that dynamic and that comparison, but just, you know, having it there in the first place, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think the idea of the Pyre guy could have been potentially interesting in that, like, Venom was to some degree a creation of Spider-Man as a villain. Like, he created that antagonist based on the actions that he took, and I think the idea with this guy is supposed to be like, you know, Venom creating his own Venom in that way, where it's like the villain that wouldn't exist if he wasn't involved in the guy's life in the first place. Yeah,
and intentionally his power set reflects that, where he gets back, and it's goofy because it has nothing to do at all with the fact that it's Venom. He just happens to he walks into a Hydra chamber that makes him a super soldier, and he gets a mess up face, and then his powers are just anti-Venom power, so he has sonar and not fire, even though his name is Pyre, and he ends up dying by getting set on fire. He should have, like, it's a really silly coincidence in the first place, so you might as well go all the way. He should have been sonar and fire.
Well, the thing is, we don't know if he's dead because they never showed the body.
That's right.
Since these miniseries get published like a Venom ongoing series, we could see the glorious return of Pyre someday. And
I didn't look it up because we're reviewing these, and I want to be surprised by a silly thing like that. So I don't want to know. I didn't look that up. But yeah, he is in a way supposed to be kind of like anti-Venom, not to be confused with anti-Venom.
Yeah. So, just to give a quick summary for people.
Yes, let's do that.
The basic structure of the story is there's this character who is, his father is a Hydra former scientist that had a secret lab in a warehouse, and then after his father died and Hydra vacated the building and abandoned the base, but for some reason left all their technology there. And
and working.
Yes, yes. A bloodthirsty street gang took over the warehouse and started using it as its headquarters.
But never thought to look at the lab?
Yeah. So they had no idea it was there. And this guy finds it in about 3 seconds in the book, and it's hilarious. Yeah. And one of the gang members even runs in, and he's like, "We don't have time to look at all this computer stuff. We gotta go have a gang war."
Yeah, the idea is he's a journalist, and he's trying to like infiltrate the gang and work undercover in order to make a name for himself by writing a story about their headquarters and what Hydra was doing there.
Yeah, and in typical Venom mini fashion, the way he joins the game is completely insane. He hires a bunch of actors.
Oh, yeah, that's right!
To be rival gang members.
Yeah, he stages
them up in front of the gang member and is recruited into them.
He stages a gang, like a battle from a gang war.
Yeah.
Possibly even inciting the gang war that we see here. I wasn't clear on that. I wondered about it.
Yeah, so he joins this gang, and he sends this little kid to go find Venom because they're going to make him, for his initiation, like, kill some people in a drive-by shooting. And Venom's whole thing is he has to stop this guy before he becomes not an innocent, which are the people Venom protects. And technically, by Venom's code of honor, he would be the kind of guy Venom would have to eat because he, killed other innocent people.
Yeah, so he doesn't want him to become a murderer.
Because he happens to hear on the radio that there's a gang war going on, he he gets in his van. And
it was the laziest way to get him in the story, and it's even better. It's even better because we read the War Journal, and the War Journal's like, I just felt like listening to the radio to pass the time.
Yeah. Why he's writing this stuff in his war journal? Like, I was driving and decided to turn on the radio. Who knows?
Yeah, and we don't, and we don't need any kind of a situation to deliver a lot of exposition in this anyway, because there are places where people just start explaining things.
Yeah, most of the things that get people to the places they get to here are really contrived, but like, so the main conflict of the story is Venom trying to get to this guy to save him before he becomes not an innocent, while at the same time the Punisher is going after all of the gang members and has no discretion between them because, as he says, if you're hanging around with a rough crowd, then you can't be innocent.
Except, of course, I feel like even the Punisher would understand the difference between a gang member and someone working undercover. But yeah. Okay. Like, I get that he's all, black and white and like, if you're not with us, you're with them, but, like, being undercover is different.
It's a point where he's dense. Like, that is a dense way to view people.
Yeah, like, I don't know, super, and he hasn't actually murdered anyone yet. He's like, if he's in the gang, exactly. It's like he's done bad things. Like, what I wanted to know is if he would be like this with an undercover cop. That was my question.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking the whole time, too. I would imagine that he wouldn't think that, but who knows? This Punisher seems to be so crazy that in one panel he looks like he has pectoral muscles drawn in his back. I mean, who knows? It's crazy stuff.
And of course, this seems like a good place to bring this up. Of course, this guy's name is Gray.
Yeah. Yeah, because the shades of gray. We're dealing with a morally situation here, so his name is Gray.
Yeah.
This miniseries basically consists of that initial conceit, and then Venom and Punisher fighting each other, and then then Venom fights Pyre with Punisher being there. Punisher kind of crashes his van through a wall and sits during the fight.
Yep.
You just kind of watches it happen. So yeah, that's basically the story, and Pyre eventually like kind of trips up and he goes into his dad's base, and to hide from the Punisher he gives himself anti-venom powers by becoming a super soldier, which like I mean those Hydra people were really thinking ahead, I guess.
That whole thing is baffling, and okay, so here's my big question about that character. When I'm reading it, I feel like and I can't imagine, especially dealing with Venom and a thing that's supposed to be in the world of Spider-Man and obviously is dealing with questions of responsibility. I can't imagine that that the writer is actually really thinking this, but it really feels like I'm supposed to sympathize with this guy, and he's really tragic, and he kind of had no choice, and it's supposed to be this like big question of like what do you do in an impossible moment like that? Like the situation of if he doesn't kill those people, they will kill him is better. Yeah. As a like self-preservation thing. Like in that moment, yeah, I guess I don't know what I would do, but he seems kind of silly for getting into that situation in the first place, so it's a little bit difficult for me to sympathize with him. And then by the end, it gets like that is much less contrived than his going, oh no, the Punisher is coming down the hallway and going to kill me. I better get into this experimental tube so that maybe I'll get powers and fight. It's not just he's hiding there. He intentionally pushes the buttons to turn himself into a super soldier and is like,
that's right,
and says, it's the only way. And that's, and that starts to be a weird excuse, and it's not like anybody would want to turn themselves into a monster necessarily, but he starts just looking like an idiot by the end, and I have a difficult time sympathizing with him.
Right, and his whole beef with Venom is you didn't save me in time, so I was forced to become Pyre.
Yeah, and like that's real entitled, right? Like Venom is being a really nice guy for trying, for showing up at all. Like isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it weirdly kind of the Nero thing with Spock with 09? Like I'm gonna blow up Vulcan because you tried and failed to save my planet. It's the same thing as this. this is not Venom's fault. It is, and like when Venom kills him at the end, that's also supposed to be this morally ambiguous thing of because he's really apologetic, he feels bad, he drops a big box on him, and even though he has murdered people, he still feels bad because he feels like it's his fault that happened because he didn't get to him in time. But that really is a place where it was either that or he get killed because the guy's got sonic powers and he's shooting him at him and he's going to kill him. So like, what do you do? So like, right. I think Venom made the only choice he could make there, and yeah. You know, that was a self-defense kind of situation. So the real person who's at fault for Venom not showing up in time is Punisher because he wastes his time, won't let him get there. Although there's this really weird moment where they're fighting and he goes, "Oh no, the sun went down." And I was like, how much time has passed? Like, you guys have been fighting for all of a page. And he's like, oh no, all the time went away. I'm not going to be able to get there in time. But like, so that is kind of the you know, much more the Punisher's fault.
And the whole reason why they have this conflict in the first place is that Venom and Punisher just don't explain, they don't like have any sort of like coherent dialogue about what their goals are before they start fighting, and then they just kind of like try to stop each other because they fought before. Like, it's so weird. Like, Venom tries to explain to the Punisher that like there's this one guy he needs to save, and the Punisher's like, no, I need to kill him. Like, why did they just like go and like try to find the guy together? And then if the Punisher had ulterior motives, he could have tried to shoot him. Like, he could have had Venom's help fight the gang members instead of distracting each other and causing more destruction. Like, Punisher has a Gatling gun on the top of his van, and he's shooting it in the streets at these gang members.
Yeah, and he's killing people right and left. Yeah, it's because we have to try to contrive this moral dilemma where to make it so that we, the reader, will agree that Venom is somewhat responsible, and it's so thin and not the way, and what I'm actually reading is not the way it's being talked about, so it's super awkward. Like, I feel like you could much more realistically contrive a situation where Venom tries to help the guy but fails and makes it worse, and that's not what we have here. And all you have to do is write the Punisher out, and you could easily come up with a situation where that happens. Like, Venom is not the right guy for finesse, which is what a situation like this requires. So all we had to do is have Venom show up to help that guy, and that guy ends up, for whatever reason, having to kill people anyway, or something. I don't know what it would be, but, like, it's not what we're saying it is, and it's really awkward.
Yeah, it's really weird, and one of the things that I thought was a real big missed opportunity with this miniseries, and with, I guess, sort of Lethal Protector too, is there seems to be this running thing with these Venom minis where Venom is dealing with sort of like the urban decay issues that were big in like the 80s and stuff, with like the first one was kind of about all the homeless people in the underground society they have, and Venom is like their protector and stuff, and now we're dealing with, you know, violent gangs of young people and stuff like that, which I think is potentially like a good thing to explore with a character like Venom. I think that's potentially a good idea. I don't think it's executed well at all. Yeah. But I think that that's it. I wouldn't have expected them to like make that an issue with these minis, but it is kind of becoming a running theme with them.
We are thinking, and we're trying to create a status quo for him, because he has a reputation now, apparently, with some of the people on the street, of being someone you can go to for help, which is potentially interesting. I don't know how this kid knows about him or where to go to find him.
He was from the homeless underground society that we saw in the first movie.
Oh, okay, and I forgot all about that because it's been years since we read it.
I don't know. I don't remember if he's specifically in that, but they do show him returning to it, and they make it sort of clear that he lives there, and Venom is there when he goes to talk to him.
So that's cool. I kind of like the idea that Venom is trying to become like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for this area, and it's not working because he's because what he says he wants is at odds with what he really wants, and that's what these should be about. This should be much more about like his bloodlust and his making excuses to get to hurt people. And we keep talking about it like that's what it is, but the actual events that are happening aren't supporting that.
Right, and like you said, that would be a very good kind of contrast with Frank Castle, because the argument with that guy all the time is like, is this guy really trying to do good, or is he just justifying, like, perpetuating the psychosis that he has, where he, like, is in war mode still and needs to perpetuate this ongoing conflict where he needs to fight something and kill things.
Part of the problem, of course,
like
is that
Venom, where he has a bloodlust that he can't satiate, and he's rationalizing being this lethal protector kind of guy.
Yeah, part of the problem is that the Punisher has a really concrete background and reason for his vengeance. He we know why he does what he does and where it all came from.
Yeah,
Brock is not an interesting character.
No.
He's kind of lame. He doesn't have that. He's
a good foil for Spider-Man in the same way that a lot of the Spider-Man villains are good foils for Spider-Man in their reflections of aspects of Peter Parker's character.
Yeah.
But when you take them apart and try to make them their own protagonists, like they become sort of like, they are literally shadows of that character, so they have to deal with a lot of the same things. Like, making Venom stories about responsibility isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that's kind of the only thing you can do with it, because he's kind of a reflection of Spider-Man in the first place, right?
Yeah, and like Brock doesn't have a massive enough trauma to back up what he's doing. Like, he's a journalist that got fired. That's it. And like you put Venom in the mix, and Venom has some of Peter Parker's baggage, but we need to do more with who Brock is as a person, which is what we fixed when we gave him to Flash Thompson. And of course, his being a superhero in the first place and actually wanting to help people, and fighting against his own self-destructive nature, is what made that interesting. And I feel like the symbiote, to some degree on his own, can also be really interesting, as we're seeing with the current monthly, that I think is kind of doing some of what these monthlies were trying to do, or some of these minis were trying to do, like, well, finally, where we finally have a gritty street level Venom book that's not about Venom as the superhero, that is kind of creepy and sometimes disturbing. That's what these want to be, and they end up just being kind of laughable. And I really feel like part of that is because we're not selling Brock as a compelling protagonist. Like, where his vengeance motive comes from is really, really vague to lame.
Yeah, and
that's why these aren't working.
Right, and the foundation was already kind of weak, as we talked about with Lethal Protector, where, like,
yeah,
the reason for his vengeance in the context of the Spider-Man story where he shows up works. I mean, I like that stuff. I think that's just great.
Yeah.
But then you take him away from Spider-Man, and you have to contrive another reason for that to keep going.
Yeah.
And in Lethal Protector, they didn't do that. And then in this, they have him reflect on his past, and it's hysterical, because it's supposed to be like a Spider-Man inner monologue thing, but he's like, I used to be a journalist.
Yeah.
Fond memories. And you're like, well, that's all that's going on with this character. That's all we got. That's all he can monologue about in his head.
That's what we
really
know.
Funny.
He's a journalist. This gray guy doesn't look like a journalist. There's no discussion about what exactly, like, what kind of articles he writes, what his background is. Does he actually have a job, or is he an aspiring journalist? Or maybe that's given to us, I forget. But
he's interested in his father's legacy as a Hydra person, it
seems like he just wants to exploit that. I think he's supposed to be Brock, where he'll do anything in order to get the job he wants and the fame and notoriety, but it's not played enough as a bad thing if it's supposed to be a bad thing. Like I was like, okay, is the problem that he wants to exploit his father's history, or is it a dream that I'm supposed to be like sympathetic toward because he's got a dream he's trying to fulfill?
We have no idea what motivates him to do that. It's just like,
and I don't know how the book
lands
on
it. His father was involved in this, and he wants to investigate it because it's his dad. We don't know, like, did he have a good relationship with his father? Like, does he want to investigate it to make him famous, like he said?
They tell us that much. Yeah. That much we definitely get, but I don't know if there's any more to it than that.
Right. Exactly.
Or if that's, or how the book comes down on it. I don't know if that's supposed to be a bad thing or not.
Right. So, I mean, the overarching, like, story, plot, character stuff of this doesn't work. But I think the nitty gritty even writing of this is very poor. Like,
there's some dialogue. buddy. That's hilarious. Yeah, it's so awkward. A lot of really strange phrasing.
Yeah. The urban gang street talk, and this is hilarious because
I'm gonna dead you. I'm gonna dead you, Dan.
I'm gonna dead you. That's what they say. Like every time they say they're gonna like waste somebody, kill them,
Constantly.
Whatever. And they're all really dumb and like really stereotypical. And the way Venom talks is hilarious at some points, where he'll just be like, "Oh no, the authorities are approaching."
You really stilted
we have
dialogue.
No interest in dealing with the authorities. It's just like nobody talks like that.
I thought of something reading this that I don't know that I've ever articulated before, which is I think sometimes, especially in this period and well before, we'll write comics so that you don't have to look at the pictures at all. Where the dialogue is written such, and I talk a lot about exposition in dialogue where it's describing what you're seeing, but sometimes it's even in a way almost more subtle than that, where it's not even like explaining the action, it's just giving you the bare minimum of what you need in case you want to breeze through it and not actually look at what's going on. Right, and there's a lot of that in this.
Yeah, and one of the unfortunate things about this, too, is, like, I don't think any of the action's particularly bad or anything.
No.
And I think the art is very competently done. It's just that I'm so uninvested in it that I think the art just looks less impressive by extension. I don't know if that makes any sense, but, like, Mark Bagley's artwork in the first miniseries stood out to me because it was just insane that like there was just yellow backgrounds and it was hysterical.
It's great.
But like the actual like way the characters were drawn and stuff was cool, and some of the action was dynamic when he actually was trying. Like here, I don't know, it's just like I was just found myself laughing at the Punisher's facial expressions more than anything.
And it does still, to some degree, have that background problem. There are a lot of corners that are cut, but we do this with a lot with 90s comics. I mean, I'm going to be a broken record if I bring that up every time. There's a lot of... it's not yellow a lot like it was with Bagley, but there are a lot of places where you have like just a straight white background or a pink background. Or
yeah, I didn't notice it as much with the first miniseries, but maybe I just wasn't paying as close attention because I read this on a computer screen rather than... For that reason, I don't know. Maybe that's the case, but this was not very good.
There were a couple,
and not in like a laughable kind of way, like Lethal Protector was. Like I would implore people to read Lethal Protector because it's hysterical and it makes no sense.
Yeah, the way in which that's bad makes it totally worth reading.
Exactly. This one. I mean, it's kind of. Probably beating a dead horse at this point to say that a Venom miniseries from the 90s is skippable.
Yeah, of course.
It's totally skippable.
Yeah. We'll see what the next one is like.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit when we did the Lethal Protector, but like the way this was published, I think they did this to cash in on the #1 craze and Venom simultaneously, in that they published a Venom comic every month, but they divided them up into miniseries for some reason. Like, this should have been a Venom ongoing, but they just, every time a story arc was over, they renumbered it as a miniseries for.
And then at the end of one, they would advertise in 30 days you get another one. It's like, I've been getting these every 30 days, but we're
exactly
just, starting again. And we would make such a big deal out of the #1 being a #1. Like, this was just before the crash. I mean, this is 93, so we're talking like a couple of years before the crash, and like we're still doing this hollow foil nonsense and stuff like that, and we're making a big deal out of a #1 when we just finished a mini that was only, I think it was 4 parts, maybe 3 or 4, I forget, but like it only went.
Was it 4 or 5 issues? I can't remember.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so you only got that for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then you've already got a hollow foil making a big deal out of a #1. This is really indicative of everything that was wrong with the medium right then. Oh
yeah, it's consummate 90s Marvel too, in the fact that like it's a Venom #1 of a terribly written and conceived story where the Punisher, the other like darling of overexposure of the 90s Marvel stuff, is there shoehorned into the story for no reason. It would, I mean,
but he is a character that makes a lot of sense to put with Venom.
He does. It's just the way he's integrated in the story. You can tell it's like a cash grab. Like, oh, Venom and the Punisher together. Like, everyone's going to buy this.
It would not have been hard to just have Punisher taking out guys in a gang war. Like, it's not hard. Yeah. It would not be hard for us to buy Venom happening upon the Punisher in with the situation we have here. And instead, he's just driving down the road, listening to the radio. There is one bit I really like. I wanted to mention though, where Venom saves his life by putting part of the symbiote over him. There's a What If comic that I think is in 2 parts, maybe.
I thought of that too. What if the Punisher got the symbiote?
What if the Punisher became, or what if Venom possessed the Punisher? And you get to see a little inkling of that because that mask is like half on him. And I thought it was really cool that we did that. And I think that might be, this might be giving it too much credit, but it might be saying that Punisher is another person that the Venom symbiote would be attracted to.
Definitely.
And I'd love to do a story like that, where instead of doing it in What If, just in 616, he gets the Venom suit for a while.
I wouldn't be surprised as well if that whole What If story inspired Rick Remender to do the Flash Thompson Agent Venom soldier thing with the guns and stuff.
Sure,
I would imagine that was a pretty big inspiration because Rick Remender had a run on the Punisher too, and I know
that makes sense.
He's got to be a fan of that character. He's written him obviously. So, but anyway. The only way this could have been even more constant 90s Marvel is Wolverine was shoehorned into it somehow, and I'm going to have to look at the publication history of this Venom miniseries ongoing thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolverine shows up at some point. I'd like to know, but we shall see, I suppose. I'm also curious how many issues this run, because I've never really looked up that either, like how many minis there actually are.
There are at least 7 or 8, if not more. We'll look into. I'm not sure. And then there's the monthly, and I don't know if we want to look at that at all. But sure. I do know that there is an arc in Wolverine where Venom shows up. There's a really cool cover that's kind of famous where he's breaking the Wolverine logo when he's fighting Wolverine.
I've never seen that before. That does sound cool.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy, or I'll send you that picture. But I don't think he shows up in any of these minis. I'm not sure, but that happens right around this. So I think instead of being in one of these, Venom shows up in his book. I think is maybe what happened.
I don't remember who's writing Wolverine at that point, but I would imagine it's probably better quality than this.
Yeah, probably so. It might be worth taking a look at that too, if we just want to really get our Venom on.
Yeah. Venom's awesome, so why not?
So anyway, everybody, thanks always for watching. We sure appreciate it. That was Dan and I, after like 5 years, finally tackling another one of these, and we're gonna start doing these every so often. I'm not gonna promise these in a particular clip, but we'll try to do them, more frequently.
We have like a backlog of like things we're kind of rotating through, like the Star Wars stuff, the Soul Daredevil, this, and maybe some other stuff too, but yeah, I'd like to get do these at a relative pace, because I think they're interesting to look at, if not just for a historical perspective kind of thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting failure, if nothing else, because this was such a popular character, and you
most popular character ever. Don't forget.
you what? Yes, but. Especially right then, Venom was a big deal, and
definitely.
He just didn't work on his own, and for the longest time we tried to crack that code, and it's much more interesting and I think much more fun to go back now after we cracked that code and take a look at this stuff. It's more satisfying because we're not constantly frustrated going, oh, this could be done somehow. Why hasn't it? It's been done now, and we've now seen a couple of iterations where it's been done well, and so it's much more fun to go back and look at this, and it's kind of a quaint moment, in the history of this character.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe some of these minis will surprise us. Maybe one of them will be good down the line.
Sure.
I mean, who knows? I've never even really looked at like who wrote all of these. I don't know if maybe there was one miniseries written by Peter David or something. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote one. He would be a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if wrote one of these like for 3 issues or something. It was really great, and then the quality dropped off after that.
Yeah, and in 2 or 3 of these, we get the Venom versus Carnage mini, which I remember liking, but I don't know if it's actually good. It's probably more like, reading Maximum Carnage, which isn't good in a conventional sense, but we had fun reading it.
Is that the one that Clean Crane drew?
No. That was much later.
That's what I thought. Okay, so this is different.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is during this period. There's like a another three-parter that's just Venom versus Carnage.
Oh, cool. Okay. Because I have the trade of the Clean Green thing called Venom versus Carnage. I didn't know if you were talking about that or something else.
Yeah, that when it was coming out in issues was just called Carnage, and originally was supposed to be an Iron Man thing.
No, I'm talking about something before that.
Oh, before that?
I know that mini you're talking about.
Yeah.
But there was a thing even before that. That was
well, we might be talking about the same thing then. I didn't know Cleveland Crane.
I know the miniseries you're talking about with Iron Man because I read that in when it was coming out.
Right, and we talked about it together, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know Clayton Crane ever drew on that character before that. So we might be talking about the same thing.
Yeah. He did do a miniseries called Venom vs. Carnage before that, so
that's probably what it is.
It's probably different because I can't imagine his art looking like that in this period. Yeah.
No, I didn't know he was working back then, because he does mostly like computer stuff now.
And his art looks very similar to that too. What's the name of that other symbiote that's the Son of Carnage? Is Toxin? He's involved in that story too, pretty heavily. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
And maybe we can look at Separation Anxiety at some point because I've never read that.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Now that I think about it, maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I might have read it at some point, but I don't remember it at all, like what happened to it or anything.
Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, folks. We sure appreciate it, and we will see you again with more Spider-Man page by page and more of these and lots of other vaults that we're working on. So anyway, I am Captain Logan.
I'm Dan.
Thanks for watching, folks.
Bye.